This episode is brought to you by my bookkeeping strategy sessions. When it comes to your bookkeeping, you're probably in one of these three areas: doing it yourself, outsourcing some or all of your bookkeeping to a professional, or understanding what the reports mean and making better business decisions from that information. Each of these stages comes with different struggles and questions, and I can help with all three. Bring your questions and I'll bring some solutions. To book one of these sessions, email me at lydia@dacbalance.com. Now on with the show. You've started a home-based service business and you have found that running a business is harder than it looks and more overwhelming than you ever thought it would be. This podcast is the best of the best information that I've learned to help grow and sustain my business. Listen, subscribe, and follow along. We can avoid the overwhelm and start creating a business we love to run. Welcome back to the podcast. If you are listening in real time, then you know that it is the middle of July, and I don't know where you are, but where I live in Pensacola, Florida, it is so hot and it rains every day, and we're about to get somewhat of a tropical storm this weekend. So hopefully it'll cool off and be a little bit nicer outside, but for now, I'm just really enjoying the summer and really enjoying kind of the slower pace that July brings. A podcaster that I like to listen to said that July is the Bermuda Triangle of months because you don't know where it goes, and all of a sudden it's August and it's back to school. And even if you're not going back to school or you don't have kids going back to school, you're automatically in that rhythm again of routine and structure. And July is kind of that last month in the summer where you can take it easy and not worry too much about that. So I'm very much enjoying July right now. So what I want to talk about today is your bookkeeping too far gone? And by too far gone, I mean, should you just scrap it? Should you totally start over? Is it salvageable? Do you need to just throw in the towel and hire an expert? And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, because I'm sure if you haven't done your bookkeeping in a while, or you don't really know what you're doing and you've always kind of winged it, you may have thought, should I just totally give up on this altogether because I just have no idea what I'm doing? So let's talk through a few things before you decide what you want to do. So my first question for you is, have you ever done your bookkeeping before? And by doing your bookkeeping, has anyone ever taught you what you're supposed to be doing for your bookkeeping? Have you ever Googled it, or have you ever gotten advice from someone who knows what they're doing and been told, okay, this is what you do for your bookkeeping, these are the tasks that you do, and here's how you stay on top of it? Have you ever done that before and actually implemented those things? That's the first question I want you to consider. Okay, and so my next question is, do you have years and years of a mess in your QuickBooks file? So let's say that on January 1st this year, you got some help, you figured out what you wanted to do, and starting in January, you really decided, I'm going to make a go at this. I'm going to try to get my bookkeeping in order. So have you ever, but do you have a mess? Like, do you have like 5 other years in QuickBooks of like wrong information and duplicates and no idea what's going on? Like, is that still in your file? That's the second question I have for you. My third question for you is this: are you sure or not sure that the information is accurate because you've never had an accountant or bookkeeper lay eyes on your file before and you're just winging it every month? You'll probably know the answer this way. At the end of the year, when your accountant goes in and maybe they just run a profit and loss for your taxes and a few other reports, do they give you back the information and say, you made this amount of money this year? And you're looking at it thinking, there is no way that I made that much money. You kind of probably have a sense of how much money, at least how much top line revenue you're making, because you kind of know how much you're billing out and how much money's coming in for the most part. But if you're looking at that number at the end of the year thinking, there's just no way, like that is at least double what I made last year, there's got to be a problem because the CPA never went back and actually looked at your work. That's my next question for you, if you've ever thought that before. So my next question is this: do you have duplicate transactions? And by that, I mean, do you go in and see that you made 2 invoices for a client for the same amount for the same project? Or do you have 2 expenses in there that are the exact same thing and you've been too afraid to delete it, or you've been too afraid to avoid it because you don't know if that'll mess something else up, so you just leave it in there? So do you have duplicate transactions in QuickBooks that you know about? And my last question is this. Do you look at your reports and know that the information is not accurate? And by that, I mean, do you run a report and you look and you see all kinds of money in miscellaneous expenses or miscellaneous income, or maybe you just look at the reports and you realize, okay, that is definitely not true. Like, I did not spend that much money last month, or that bill didn't come in last month and yet it says that I paid it. So what's going on there? Do you look at your reports and just know that some of the information is just not accurate? Now, most of the time, if you run a small enough business, you kind of have a sense of, and especially if you're looking at your bank account pretty much every other day, you pretty much get a sense of how much money that you're bringing in and how much money you're spending. And so just by glancing at your reports, you'll probably realize, oh, okay, I did spend that. And oh, I remember making that purchase, or oh, I don't remember paying for that this past month. So if you're looking at your reports and you know the information isn't accurate, that's another sign. So we've gone through these preliminary questions of if you've never done your bookkeeping before, if there's a mess in the back end of your file that you don't know how to deal with, if your accountant's giving you bad information because they don't have information to work off of, if there's lots of duplicates, so on and so forth. If you know that there's these problems with your QuickBooks file, I want you to take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. I have a few solutions for you. This was not meant to stress you out. This is just meant to make you think there is a better way and you can do this better. So here is what you can do if you have a mess and you just want, and you've already filed your taxes from previous years. You don't want to think about it anymore. You don't really care about that information. You just want to start fresh. Here's what you can do. Number 1, you can open up a new QuickBooks file and totally start fresh. Now, this may be a little intimidating. I'm not saying delete the old file because you don't want to do that. You have to keep that information, and you definitely want to print it off, or you want to make sure that you have that copy. So I'm talking about using a different email address, opening up a new QuickBooks file, and starting again. So what you can do is this. Depending on when your fiscal year starts, and your fiscal year, for the most part, it's going to start on January 1st, unless you've elected to start a different date. What I would do is start as of January 1st, and I would download all of the transactions from your business bank account, put them into that file, and start fresh. So you start reconciling starting January 31st. And you start moving on from there. You will need an accountant to go in and put in your ending balances from your tax return from December 31st, since your taxes have already been filed, but that's something that you can get your accountant to do, or a great bookkeeper to do that for you. But just move on from there. I just don't feel guilty if you have had years and years of mess in your QuickBooks file and you don't know what to do with it, and you're just ready to start fresh and just not worry about it. This is especially true if you have a business that's evolved over the last couple of years. I know that even in my own business, when I started, 3 years ago, I'm not offering the same services anymore. So it doesn't do me a lot of good to look at the services that I was providing, because I'm offering different things now. So if the historical information doesn't matter as much to you, this is a great option for you to take. So what you would do is, like I said, you can just download a CSV file from your bank, because you can only get so many days of transactions automatically imported into QuickBooks. You can download the CSV file. Everything goes into QuickBooks. You pull out your bank statements. You select the transactions that are accurate. You add them into your QuickBooks file, you reconcile, you categorize everything correctly. You can start over with your chart of accounts. You can put just the correct information in there and know from the get-go that this is it. This is the right information I'm supposed to have in there, and you're done. You're not worried about, 2 years ago I did a duplicate transaction and it's throwing this number off. Don't worry about that. Or even just seeing the mess. Sometimes that's an issue too. I had a client where I should have just totally started over with them, but I had to go through years and years of just mess and duplicate transactions, and it was an absolute nightmare. So just to not even see the mess anymore, this is a great option. And you can always keep the old file. I would definitely recommend keeping the old file. I mean, you have to keep it. Like, it's really not an option. You still want to keep that up. And if you want to, you can pay someone to go back and catch it up for you and to get all the information correct. And even if you wanted to refile your tax returns, you could do that as well. If you realize that you way overpaid in taxes, or if you underpaid in taxes, like if you just want to go back and have a CPA refile for you, that is definitely an option. And you definitely want to get the advice of a good CPA on that. But it's going to be costly. Like, that is going to cost you quite a bit of money to have someone go back through and for the CPA to refile. Just FYI. So keep that in mind. And it may be that you decide later on this year or next year that you really want that information. So you go ahead and do that. But if you're not even keeping up with it right now because you're so overwhelmed, then just consider starting fresh. Consider opening a new file starting January 1st and moving forward from there. And if you want to do this, and if you want to go over it in a strategy session, I can definitely help you with that. Just going through your bank, downloading the CSV file, making sure it's all imported, and just knowing what to do to get caught up. So number 2, that's the first thing, just starting fresh. Number 2, put policies and procedures in place now to prevent a future mess. So just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean it has to be done that way. If you don't have policies and procedures in place, don't overthink this, and don't think that, oh, this is just what big companies have, or that's what other business owners do, but I'm just too small. No, like, if you own a business, then you need policies and procedures, especially when it comes to your bookkeeping. And so just don't overthink this. This is just how you do your bookkeeping and what needs to be done every day, each week, and each month, and who does those tasks. It's important too, even if you have a bookkeeper that comes in once a month, to have this written out just so that everyone's clear on who does what. And this is also going to be where you write what you don't allow in your business bookkeeping and things that you don't want to see or things that you don't want to happen. And so this is going to be really important because if you're doing this in your own business, you're only doing these tasks once a month, right? Like, this is not something that you're doing every single day. And most of the time, this is not something that's in your wheelhouse, that you're just naturally doing anyway for your business. And sometimes you're only doing these things once a quarter. And so even for my own clients, I write out standard operating procedures and tasks that I do for them monthly because I don't always remember every detail, and I don't always remember like how much I have to do or how to complete the tasks sometimes. And I am a bookkeeper. Like, I do this for people as well. And I have an accounting degree, like all of that. And I still write everything out just so that I know every month, okay, I finished that. I did this. We're done. Everything looks great. So this process can be really simple for what you do. So the next time you do your bookkeeping, open a Word document and write out the procedures that you're doing and follow them to a T over and over and over again each month to make sure that you don't miss any details. And so once you write it out the first time, just print it out. And then the next month you can pull it up on your computer. I prefer to have paper, so you can have just a piece of paper beside you and you can say, okay, so this is the first thing that I do. I remember that the first thing you do is, let's say you just check your AR and make sure that everyone's been billed. And so you go through and you make sure that's done. And then you go to the next process and go to the next process and so on and so forth. And so this is also great because once you start doing this in your own business, you can have a professional look over what you're doing and they can give you advice on ways to streamline or on something that you could be missing or something that they're like, okay, why are you doing this? Or why aren't you doing that? And, just add in some more details for you to make it really simple and really clear for you. And someday when you do hire this out to somebody, you can hand it over to them and say, this is what I want you to do. Like, these are the steps that I want you to take. This is what I've been doing. And these are the reports that I like to see at the end of the month. And these are the questions that I ask as well. So your bookkeeper is going to love you if you do that because it's going to make it so simple for them to know what you've been doing. And it's going to be just really professionally done. And you're going to feel like you're a boss at the end of it. So if you already have these written out, side note, I can take a look at them for you in a strategy session and go through them with you, and we can figure out ways to do this better. Or if you just want me to develop them totally for you, I am working on something. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I'm going to anyway. So I'm working on something to come out in the fall where they're already written out for basically just about any service-based business. If you use QuickBooks and what you should be doing and just the processes that you should be doing each day, week, and month, and how to do those things so that you can implement them in your business and you can customize them from there. But that's coming out later this fall, like in September. But I didn't tell you that. You heard that from somebody else. So anyway, I can help you in a strategy session until then to kind of get everything streamlined, just to make it really simple and so that you're not stressing when you start working on it every single month. And so the key is, after you do that, to do the same thing each time the same way, because consistency is going to really help you in your business and to keep the stress levels down. And also by consistency, I mean you categorize things the same way every month. You're always sending out invoices on a certain date. You're always checking on your receivables. You're always making sure that your bills are paid on a certain day. You know, just these rhythms that you can kind of get into in your business to make sure that your cash flow stays up and just to really be on top of everything. So those are my tips. Is your bookkeeping too far gone? And are you worried about it? So don't worry if you need to start over again. If you've decided that you just want to open up a brand new QuickBooks Online account or a brand new QuickBooks file or whatever program that you're using and just start from scratch, don't worry about it. Like, the important thing is that you get the information correct so that you can start using it. Because if you just are trying to hold on to it because you've always done it this way or because it's always been in the file like that, then it's not helping you in your business and you're not able to really look at it and find out how much profit you're actually making, and you're not able to make good decisions for your business. So that is my encouragement for you today. And I would be honored to work with you. I think I've talked about that a few times in the episode, but if you want to get started, or if you just have a question or you had an aha moment, I would love to hear from you. My email is lydia@dacbalance.com. And if you want to do a strategy session, just send me an email with the problem that you're having and we can discuss the best way to get to a solution for it. I can't wait to hear from you. And until then, make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast in iTunes or wherever you're listening to this. And if you would, if this podcast is helping you and if you're gaining information from this and you're really enjoying it, would you mind leaving a review on iTunes for me? It really helps for the exposure of the show. I'm sure if you've listened to other podcasts, you've heard them say that, but it really is true. It is important. And I like to leave reviews for other people's podcasts whenever I think about it or whenever I'm enjoying it. So if you could just leave a review there and then share it with a friend. Maybe you know of someone who is struggling with their bookkeeping, or they don't want to talk about it because it stresses them out so much. If you wouldn't mind sharing an episode with them, that would be just the greatest honor that you could give me as I'm doing this podcast. And that's the best way to get people to listen, I think, is just word of mouth. That's how I found some of my favorite podcasts, is someone recommending it to me. So next time I'm going to be sharing more information. Let's see, next week's episode is bookkeeping goal milestones. And so we're going to talk about how to know if you're just starting to work on your bookkeeping. These are like the baby steps you can take of like, okay, you're doing this. Now that's great. Now let's move on to the next step. Now let's move on to the next step. So just small steps you can take to get your bookkeeping caught up and where you want it to be. So until then, you can connect with me on Instagram at lydia.miller.mba and always by email, lydia@dacbalance.com. So until next time, go and make it happen.